I think it's start. Hello. I think it started. Great. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I had to repost a different link because the first one was not set up correctly. But I hope I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to join me in this new link in the chat. But yeah, I hope. Yeah, there we go. Good, good. Some people are joining. New people are joining. Great to see you guys. So this month is going to be about kinky or BDSM, sexuality, and relationships. So I'm going to be giving advice to those of you who might have some struggles, questions, things like that. So I'm looking forward to going through all of that. Now let me check. So today, my lovely assistant is sick at home and unable to join me to set up. So I had to do it myself. And I'm just going to check with her that everything is okay. Hopefully the answer is yes, so that I can continue. Let's see what she replies. I think she is checking it from her place. Oh, great. Well, thank you. So yes, I hope you guys enjoyed January's photo set, the kidnapping photo set. It was very cinematic and beautiful, I thought, and quite haunting, pretty scary, as comments I got from many people. But you know, fear boner is a thing. So okay. So in terms of announcements, next month photo sets is going to be very moody latex, very sensual latex photos. So look forward to that. All photos that are, you know, crossing latex fashion and very moody sensuality. I very much enjoyed taking those photos, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Great. More people are joining, finding their way to the new link. So I'm going to give people just a few minutes to rejoin. In the meantime, thank you for those of you who are joining me live. Last time was the first instance where I enabled the chat function. So it's nice to see people's responses to things, you know. Be nice, be kind, and don't be vulgar. Otherwise, you'll be deleted. But I'm sure you guys are very eager to be good and impress me. So I would expect to be on your best behavior. So finally, I think there's a lot to cover today. I got a lot of questions. So I will be answering them. I'm going to be answering a lot. So it will be a bit of a long one again. So I'm gonna dive in. This month is relationships, kinky, sexuality, and relationship advice. So here we go. Question 1. In dating and relationships, do you find it's better to gradually introduce a potential vanilla partner to kink so as not to overwhelm them or scare them, to be open and upfront about DS from the beginning? My short answer, is from the beginning. At least I do it that way. All of my dating profiles are very at the very top. It says, what does it say? Let me see. I can read it to you. What my Tinder says. Let's see. I guess I put my phone on airplane mode. But I'm very upfront about it. And in my profile, how do I get to, there we go, my profile. This is my profile, Tinder profile. Some of the photos are very, very obviously dommy. So there we go. You see it in the pictures too, but it says dom, pansexual, polyamorous, big spoon. You know, so that's the very first, before I get into more about myself. And so, yes, and obviously the reason why I do that is because I don't want to waste time meeting people who are not kinky. It's absolute necessity in my life and my relationships. That's how I connect with people. So that is one of the big criteria. So that's there. But yeah, so people will know this about me before they even spoken a word to me. So that's how I do it. There's reasons I could see why people won't do it. If it's just out of just timidness, I suggest it to go for it. If some guys I've met, they have said that they don't put their kink interests, in their sexuality in their profile because they, for a lot of men seeking women, it's much harder to match with people. So you're already not getting that many matches, and then they're worried that it will narrow down the potential interests even more. So they don't put it in their profiles. But my argument to that is that if you have a very plain, plain normal profile, you're gonna look like every other person on those dating sites. And I guess if people looking for just normal or whatever person might occasionally swipe on you. But if you are honest about your kink interests, obviously people who are not interested will swipe away or ignore your profile. And that's probably a big chunk of people on there. However, you will catch the attention of somebody who is into that. So let's say a woman who is interested in a submissive guy sees that they're interested in being subby. If you don't write it, she might just see you as just another guy who looks and writes like the profile sounds exactly like hundreds of other profiles. That will catch her attention. So it's more about, you're trying to look for the right person instead of a lot of people, right? At the same time, I can see how you might be hesitant of disclosing this. For instance, if you met somebody through a vanilla setting, like, you got your flirt, you met through work or met at a yoga class or something like that, and out in the world as people did years ago, and I guess some people do still. But if you did meet out in the world, then I can see how it might be, you might, need to think a bit before you disclose it, because if you need to get a sense of how they feel about that topic, maybe bring it up as a topic, not as your own interest, but talk about these kind of topics. Talk about your friend who's kinky. Very, very secretive. But yes, asking for a friend. Talk about yes, the topic in general. How do you feel? What do you think about kink? Have you seen this film that had this kinky scene? What did you think about it? And kind of get a sense of it, because obviously in this world where kink is quite taboo, and you have to interact with them after you talk about these things, after you disclose that your interest, and if they are very judgmental, potentially it could be harmful to to having a safe space at these places, right? Maybe they'll tell other work colleagues, maybe they will tell other people who are part of that social group and that you're part of, which might be difficult, put you in a difficult position. So I would say just kind of like dig into some questions, and then maybe bringing it up. So that's something I would suggest. But my point is that if you start finding mutual interest in somebody and you want things to escalate, or things to move forward, then you should find a way to disclose it in the beginning. Unless you're okay with living, let's say you're looking for a long-term partner and you're okay with living your life potentially without being able to be sexual in your kinky sexuality with this person, because there's you have to consider the chance that you disclose it months into your relationship and they say that they're absolutely not interested in that, and they never want to participate in it. And that at that point, maybe you'll have, you're very invested in the relationship and your life together, and you're gonna have to consider what options you can take to either give up this big part of your sexuality, to be with this person, or, you know, something else. So if it's something you absolutely need to have in your life, if you're very strongly oriented towards kink, then, you know, like sexual compatibility is a big thing. You have to bring it up in the beginning, I think, for your own good, and, you know, for the other person also will probably be investing in the relationship, and it's probably something they would like to know. Yes, so question 2. So I'm wishing to transition one of my kinky relationships to DS. Do you recommend any protocols, rituals, or for couples new to the lifestyle to experiment with? Yeah. Say both parties talk about your fantasies to see where it overlaps, you know, just talking about fantasies can be also fun and sexy, you know. Whenever I meet new people, which I do all the time, not recently, since last year has been obviously different for you know, it's not have been the norm for all of us. But pre-pandemic, I used to meet a lot of new subs professionally and just for fun, and I love talking about sexuality, so I would bring it up. I'll bring up like what are things they're into, talking about these things and being teasy about it and having fun with it. And it's not this like negotiating consent that is very dry and like contracty, where you just like, I consent to A, B, and C, and I don't consent to D, F, G, right? Which is a valid way of negotiating. You can absolutely do that if that's what you're comfortable with. And that's fun for you, then that's great. But for me, it's a lot more intertwined with the conversation. So yes, just kind of like make it part of the fantasy and the talk, just like, ooh, tell me what you're turned on by, you know, and me telling stories about I did this to somebody once and like this, or I watched this thing and I really loved it and it made me want to do A, B, and C, you know, and see what their reaction is. So, and then you can kind of get like create kind of, you know, you start building this kind of Venn diagram in your mind of where that overlap is, where you both got excited about. So that's a good place to start. Yeah. And then, so that's kind of the pre-play discussion. And then you try those things out. And then you do like a post-play discussion. And when I say discussion, it's not these, you know, like I said, it's not like sitting at the table and discussing what we're about to do. And then again, sitting at the table and discussing what we just did. And, you know, it's like part of this flow of this talking about fantasy and this flirting like way, and then you play, and then afterwards you're cuddling them, your aftercare, and then during that moment I ask like, you know, how did you feel about that? You know, how are you feeling? How did you feel about when this happened? And then kind of start digging into things that resonated with them and things that did not. they didn't feel good about. And those are things, the information I'm extracting and getting from it, right? And obviously, as the Dom, you can talk about that too, about things that didn't go well for you. Yeah, so that's kind of like the flow of it. And I'm getting all of these information out as this like very like the consent, like enthusiastic consent and negotiation model, but not done exactly in the way that that structure is done typically, I guess. And then I also like to bring it up maybe a week after. Yeah, a week after, I will, because sometimes it takes a minute to process things. Sometimes you are still feeling elated and high from that experience, and it takes like a minute to a few days to process, maybe a week to process how you actually felt about it. Maybe in the moment it was exhilarating, but then afterwards you got really like, you felt really shitty about it or felt guilty about it. All of these things, you want to make space to talk about that. Yeah, so those are kind of the advice in terms of like structure and how the flow of things when starting to explore DS. Question 3. There's 2 questions that are, I think, are similar. So I'm going to answer it in the same breath, so to speak. So, and these are questions mostly I was received from my Patreon members, but also I got a few from my Instagram followers. I've picked a few favorites. All of my members' questions plus a few that I selected from my Instagram followers. So hopefully you'll see a few of yours in here. So question 3, there I'm kind of combining 2 questions I received into one answer. My Dom is not powerful enough to rule me, and I don't know how to tell her. Any advice? Okay. How can I get my wife to know she can cuckold me if she wants to? I have showed her pics and videos. Okay. So both of these questions, how I would approach that is, number 1, does your partner want that thing? Sometimes we see as the, as femdom. These are both relating to femdom. So we see the structure of femdom is like as truth or the way or the ultimate like answer to how to live your life, and it can only be a good thing. It's been misunderstood by the world, but it can only be a good thing. This is the way to live, which is like not the case if the woman doesn't want to be part of it, if it's not her fantasy. And some people some subs have a hard time wrapping their heads around how a woman doesn't want to be worshipped and rule over him and to control everything, and they see it as that is the good thing, and I'm giving this good thing all to my partner, and so why doesn't she want this? So you have to really check yourself and understand and like really try to get to the bottom of, does she really want this? Does she want to be dominant over you? Does she want to rule your life? Does she want to be a cuck queen and and get a bull and get fucked while you don't get fucked. Right? So these are things that she may not want, and that's valid. That is very valid. Like, not everybody wants that. And in fact, a lot of women don't want that. Right. So, dominant women who fantasize about these things are going to be happy to have a partner who wants these things. But not every woman wants these things. And, sure, you can try to show her pictures, videos, and explain why you're into that, right? So another thing is owning your own fantasy. Sometimes when you're submissive and you are into worshiping and you're into service, you think that in your fantasy, it's something you're only doing for their pleasure, because in their fantasy, that's what the woman wants, and so you're doing something just for her, and you're sacrificing yourself for her pleasure. But you have to own the fact that that is your fantasy. That is your fantasy. And when your partner engages in that, she is engaging potentially in her fantasy as well. So it's your fantasy and her fantasy, but potentially she's engaging in just your fantasy. So you have to own the fact that you get off on the idea of serving somebody, and it's your desire, and in a way, to ask that is something that you're trying to get your desire fulfilled. So your desire is the one that is getting fulfilled, right? And the importance of owning that is because, you get into the situation where your dom gets exhausted by, there's a lot of things about being a dom, and to use the language, to rule your life is a lot of work. It's a lot of mental labor. You have to come up with a bunch of protocol. You have to come up with a bunch of training. You have to come up with all these rules. You have to enforce it. You're going to have to come up with ways to punish your sub and to enforce these things. And, or maybe in the cuckolding situation, maybe you don't want to be getting fucked by a huge cock all the time. Maybe that's not something you're into. Maybe you do it once in a while because you enjoy, or you're the cuckold partner. You see that it's getting you off, and so maybe you'll do it once in a while, but maybe it's not something she wants to be doing all the time. So you have to own your fantasy, and when you're approaching your partner, that that you're asking your fantasy to be fulfilled, and you're not telling them that you're just here to fulfill their fantasy. So that's important. So yes, you have to figure out if your partner wants this thing. You may, talk about it, show videos, try to figure out, help her figure out how, if she might be interested in as well. You can talk about why you enjoy that, how much it brings you pleasure, and how it turns you on, which might actually intrigue and interest your partner to try it out, perhaps. But maybe it doesn't, and then you can't force them to engage in it. Yeah. if they are interested and the problem is that they just don't know how to, then you can give them resources, help them find resources. Maybe, reading through books, getting, going online and getting advice from how-to guides of BDSM, things like that, that they can learn and read through. Don't just dump it on them. Help them find these resources, and so they can learn. I have had quite a few wives, girlfriends who have come to me and come to me to get a session, just to learn how to dominate. So I might go through like asking them what exactly they want to learn, and come up with a curriculum and teach them how to do these things. So contacting a pro dom for her services, and ask them if they do a training or education thing course might be also a great option. So if they're interested and they just don't know how to, help them get resources. That's my answer to that. Okay, next question. I suffer during sex from endometriosis. How do I maintain my power through pain? So that my partner can enjoy sex. Yeah, I have a few friends who have it and have told me about the pain they have endured during sex intercourse. So you definitely have to get creative. So these are some of the questions I would ask yourself. One is, your partner aside, do you want to have penetrative sex? So that would be the first one. If it wasn't for your partner wanting it, do you even want it, right? With the pain involved, or when you're masturbating, when it's just for yourself, do you just want to use clitoral stimulation and other types of pleasuring to get off? For me, I'm not a very pussy-oriented person to begin with. So I don't have penetrative sex much at all. And not because I have any condition, but it's not what turns me on, and it's not what gets me off. And so most of my sexual intimacy comes from DS play, from BDSM. So maybe there are other ways that you really get off that doesn't involve penetrative sex too, or any kind of physical orgasm. You can enjoy and get quite a release of sexual pleasure without orgasms. If that's something that, which is like something that for some people might find mind-blowing, but and some people will not be happy about it. For some people, they want to have physical orgasms, and that's fine too. And so finding ways that are not as painful will be great. But being sexual, having sexual interactions with somebody, intimacy with somebody, does not have to involve orgasms at all. So that's something you might want to explore. So if you answered that where am I? Yes. If partner aside, do you want to have sex? And if you do want to, some of the suggestions I have is perhaps explore masochism. And so what I mean by this is that there's an artist named Bob Flanagan who had cystic fibrosis, and any sexual activity gave him immense pain. And he kind of went through this process of embracing pain in a masochistic way, because sexual activity necessarily involved pain every time. Every time it was pain was part of it. So he kind of went through this process of sexualizing pain, right? So perhaps that despite the pain, you still want to have intercourse. Going through kind of this process of eroticizing the pain as well, right? So that is something you have to kind of guide yourself, and also your partner has to be very mindful and very aware of what pain level you are, and very kind of like gradually ramping up and going down and finding really, playing with the pain level itself and not just the pleasure, right? So those are things, like BDSM, like pain can be a big part of play, right? But there's the right good way to do it and not so good way to do it. But that's a whole art in and of itself that you have to learn, over time with experience. There are resources out there how to engage in pain play and things like that. So you could read more about that. But yes, and it's going to be a vulnerable thing. It will be a vulnerable experience. There might be a lot of emotional breaking down, and embrace that. Let it happen. Hopefully your partner can be there and be the rock to pull you through that as well. So that's something you could try. And I think perhaps also limit the frequency if you want to engage in penetrative sex that is very painful to you. Find like a sweet spot of how often you can engage in this, that you have plenty of time to mentally and physically recover, and that it doesn't become too overwhelming, so find kind of that sweet spot and do other sexual activities in between, And then also, I can also, if you want more of this dominant role, also like when you say, how do I maintain my power through pain? I would also suggest that make it a worship ritual, pampering and worship. So make your partner, make a bath before, treat you, pamper you before you go into sex, And then afterwards, after you went through this painful ordeal, make him worship you and, bring you the food you like, give you a foot massage, all these things. Make that part of it and ask your partner of these things. And so they are aware that this is how they are aware of the amount of work you're putting into the sexual activity itself and the struggles you go through it, and that they are appropriately appreciating that and showing that appreciation. And so that's something I would suggest. Next question. I'm the one who is falling too much in love with my sub. How do I reverse it and maintain the wanted one? I see. So the question I would ask here first is, do you want to play power games? Is that why you're asking this question? Right. So if you're asking this question because you just think that, well, the guy's supposed to be the one who's chasing me, and that's how things are supposed to be. And so I feel like it's wrong when I'm the one who's fallen in love head over heels, and they're, I'm the one who's chasing, right? If you think it's not supposed to be that way, so that's why you want to change it, the answer is let yourself fall in love and have a crush and, feel helpless and vulnerable. And it's okay. You can feel helpless and vulnerable as a dom because you're madly in love with your sub. That's beautiful. I like that. So there's that. But then if you're asking this question because you want to be playing power games, you want them crawling over to you and you want to regain that power. And then my advice is to focus on other things in your life, like pick up a new hobby or invest in other things that is, that is investing in yourself. Go on other dates, see other people, and, to kind of like gain your balance so that you're, if you're feeling like you're just getting too caught up on this crush, just try to balance your life with other things that you focus on in your life. And, going on other dates, days with other people can be also very, very distracting from those feelings. And this is an advice that's good for anybody who's like struggling with feeling like their crush is so overwhelming that they feel like a crazy person and like worried that you're kind of online stalking your crush too much and getting a little creepy, a little too obsessive, and you want to like kind of dial down a bit. That's that advice I would give as well, so refocus on other things, invest in yourself, and then just engage, still engage with that crush, still engage with that feeling, but just give yourself other focuses in life so you're not consumed by this. So that will be my advice. Okay. Number 6. I like BDSM stuff, but my partner isn't really into these things, but she is trying her best. Is it wrong? I think it's kind of related to some earlier questions I answered, but yes, when your partner is not really into kinky things, but they are trying to engage in it purely for the sake of your pleasure and want to please you, which is a valid thing to want. You know, you can definitely do things because you get pleasure out of giving your partner pleasure. So that's kind of the situation right here, that they're doing it to please you. Is it wrong? It's not wrong if they are it's not wrong if they are getting pleasure out of seeing you in pleasure, even though they might not exactly be into that activity itself. Maybe watching you enjoy it so much, they're finding pleasure in that. So that, if that's the case, it's not wrong. But if they're engaging in that out of fear of losing you, then that's where it becomes toxic, right? Is if they're engaging in these sexual activities where it makes them feel bad, it makes them feel anxious, it makes them feel gross about themselves, but they're still doing it because they're worried that they're going to lose you if they don't do it. Then that is very problematic, and it will lead to resentment. It's going to lead to unhealthy self-image, and potentially, so there's like a little bit of PTSD too. So that's something you really want to catch and make sure that that's not what's happening. Yeah, then you have to really talk about maybe how you can engage, you know, on your own or online with other people or physically with other people so they don't have to, or, you know, yeah, you have to, it's different if it's like a monogamous relationship versus a polyamorous or open relationship. The solutions are different. But I'm going to get more into that with the next question. It's also the last question. In a long-term relation, I've been in a long-term relationship, 7+ years, plus lockdown in combination is resulting in sexless life. 1+ year already. Another person asked a similar question. Do you think a couple has harder sex when they don't live together? I'm burnt out. Yes. This pandemic has been intense for couples, especially cohabitating couples. Man, yeah. It's so cohabitation and like resulting in sexlessness. What I would suggest is schedule a date. So whether it's every 2 weeks, every 1 month, whatever that is, once a month, whatever that is that feels good to you both, schedule a date, and that's the day you hold sacred, and, you know, make sure if you need to reschedule, you do it much in advance and with both, parties, like consent, and hold that day sacred. Don't make any other plans, and, do date things, whether it's going to dinner, foreplay, whatever it is, and then play. But don't play in between at all. So that's where that interval matters, right? But if you're already in a place where you're burnt out, you haven't been sexual with your partner in a long time, maybe once a month is a good number. Or just try it, like, okay, in 4 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now, we have a date, and see how that goes. But in between that time, you are not allowed to play. And that's, for both of them, you guys. And I say this because the pressure of feeling like your partner wants sex or wants to play and they're horny. And, when you're living together, you kind of like, and your libido is super low, it can feel really anxious and like, you feel like, oh God, it's coming again. And, I need to get myself in a mindset to play. And that kind of thing can be very anxiety inducing, and also kills the libido too. So it goes in this downward cycle. So yeah, like in between that time, if you want to play, you masturbate individually, not involving the other person. You can flirt. You can be flirty. You can show affection. You can show affection, but it's guaranteed that it is just for the sake of flirting, sake of showing affection, like kissing, etc., without leading to play. So you get to enjoy that without like getting anxious that, oh man, that means that my partner is horny and I have to give them sexual attention. Nope, it's guaranteed that it's not, because that's what you agreed on with your partner about. So, but then that date night, it becomes very sacred, right? Because that's the day the potentially more hornier partner is going to be looking forward to. And if you really like drop the ball on it, then this whole system is going to crumble. So you have to really hold that day sacred. And yeah, so try that and see how that works for you. Another thing is, it's not for everyone, but opening up the relationship. I am poly myself, and it really helps with my intimate, sexual relationship with each partner, to have multiple partners, because, their horniness is their responsibility. If they're horny and I'm not feeling sexual, they have to go take care of it with somebody else, themselves or somebody else, and it's their responsibility to take care of, and it's not on me. And that gives me a lot of relief. So that's something I very much enjoy about being poly. I can be somewhat involved in it. Like, I love hearing about how it went, or, maybe I'll make them do some like DS rituals before they go on their date, anything like that, or give them, make sure that they are following this other person's like rules and things like that. So, these are things you can do to be able to cut the burden you feel maybe about having to play all the time or feeling burnt out. Yeah. So that's, and for me also, like, whenever I play with somebody new and have that new, new partner excitement, giddiness and excitement and fun, it always spills over to every partner. So if I am playing with somebody new and it reignites the fun and the playfulness of sexuality, and the novelty of it, really, when you're playing with somebody new. That reinvigorates my sexual desires, and it spills over to all my subs, all my other partners. I am feeling more sexually charged and feeling more appetite for play, and so like all my other subs reap the benefit of that too. So sometimes it's like good to be reinvigorated by somebody new, and yeah. So that's another option if you are able to, or if you are, in a relationship where you can open up, or both are open to being poly. So that's an option. The very last advice I would give is that if you're feeling burnt out in a DS relationship as a Dom, make them come up with ideas. That's the exhausting part a lot of times. Make them write down, it's like sometimes even like self-play ideas, like, what they can do when they're feeling super slutty, make a list. What they can do when they're feeling very obedient and very subservient. What's a punishment? What would they consider punishments? Like these ideas, make them write it down. And so the only thing you have to do is like pick from that. Maybe you kind of want to be involved in the sexuality in the DS like dynamic with your partner, but you're just burnt out just having all of that there. You can just pick, okay, today you're gonna do number 3. You go do it, take pictures. I want you to take pictures of you doing it, and I want you to bring it back to me after you're done. And then so you get to kind of like be kind of involved, but not as involved, And so you're still having the control because you're picking which one that's going to happen. But it really takes off a load of having to come up with create a whole world for your sub to play inside. It's a lot of like emotional labor. You can also, be playful and pick one. Maybe they're feeling super slutty, but then you pick one that's a very, very, like restraint play, regimented obedience training play, because you just want to fuck with them, So you can still exude your dominance, like, your power over them and what they actually get to do. But again, the content is all there, and it's a huge load off. So that's something you can also do as well. Okay. So that's, that was 1 hour, a lot of content, but I really wanted to answer as many questions as possible, to get to people's questions, and get, help everyone through some of their struggles. So I hope it was helpful. And look forward to next month's Patreon photo set. And I hope to read all your comments about this episode, what you thought was helpful, any other ideas you have in the comments of the Patreon post of this video. So yes, let me know. And I'll see you next month. And thank you all who are supporters of my Patreon. It helps me with all of my photo shoots, all of that budget. So hope to make more great work. Oh, and this week I'm going to be shooting with Natalie Mars, lovely Natalie Mars. We're going to be doing a photo shoot that's going to be super fun and super hot. And it's going to be probably going to be on not March, but April's photo set. So look forward to that. Okay, dears. Have a lovely night, and I will see you next month. Bye-bye.